There are moments in life where you make a decision so small, so seemingly harmless, that you never imagine it could change everything. A joke, a prank, a few minutes of laughter that you think will fade by morning. But some decisions don't fade. They don't disappear with the sunrise or get washed away by apologies. Some decisions carve themselves into your memory so deeply that years later, you can still feel the weight of them pressing against your chest in the middle of the night. I learned this lesson on a Friday evening in my sophomore year of college, when 5 of us sat around a cramped living room, passing beers and scrolling through videos that made us laugh until our sides hurt. We were young, reckless, and convinced that consequences were things that happened to other people. We lived in a rundown house just off campus, the kind of place where the floors creaked and the walls were thin enough to hear conversations 3 rooms away. It was messy, chaotic in hours. Caleb, Emma, Josh, and I had been living there since the start of the semester. Then Mia moved in. She was quiet, the kind of quiet that makes you forget someone is in the room until they suddenly speak. She kept to herself, spent most of her time in her bedroom, and rarely joined us when we hung out. At first, we thought she was just shy, maybe a little awkward. But there was something else. Something we noticed, but never really talked about. Mia was jumpy, extremely jumpy. A slammed door would make her flinch. Footsteps behind her would cause her to spin around, eyes wide, hands trembling. We saw it, acknowledged it with raised eyebrows and quick glances, but never asked why. That Friday night, we were scrolling through prank videos. You know the kind. People scaring their friends, staging fake break-ins, hiding in closets to jump out at the perfect moment. The comments were filled with crying, laughing emojis, and people saying they wished they'd thought of it first. Caleb found one where a group of guys pretended to break into their friend's house while he was sleeping. The friend woke up screaming, stumbling out of bed, and the whole thing was captured on camera. Millions of views, thousands of shares. Everyone thought it was hilarious. Caleb looked up from his phone, grinning. We should totally do this to Mia. Emma giggled, already imagining it. Bet she'd jump high enough to hit the ceiling. I laughed. Josh laughed. We were all laughing, fueled by alcohol and stupidity and the unshakable belief that nothing bad could happen. We were just having fun. It was just a prank. What could possibly go wrong? If I could go back to that moment, I would grab my younger self by the shoulders and shake him until he understood. I would tell him that some fears aren't funny, that some scars run deeper than you can see, that when you play with someone's terror for your own amusement, you're not just risking a bad reaction. You're gambling with something far more dangerous than you realize. But I didn't know that yet. None of us did. And by the time we found out, it was already too late. The plan came together fast, the way bad ideas always do when everyone's too drunk to think clearly. Caleb disappeared into his room and came back holding a black ski mask from his Halloween costume the year before. He also grabbed a plastic knife from the same set, the kind that looks obviously fake in broad daylight, but could easily pass for real in the shadows. He held it up, wiggling it in the air like a trophy, and we all nodded our approval. Simple, harmless, funny. The house itself seemed to conspire with us. It was old, creaky, the kind of place where every step made a sound and every shadow felt just a little too long. The hallway leading to Mia's room stretched down the left side of the house, dimly lit by a single bulb that flickered whenever the wind picked up. Her door was at the very end, tucked away like it belonged to a different world. She had moved in only 3 weeks ago, bringing with her 2 suitcases and a quiet sadness we never questioned. She said she didn't like living alone. We thought she was just being overly cautious. Around 11:30, Mia said goodnight and disappeared into her room. We heard the soft click of her door closing, followed by the muffled sound of her moving around inside. We gave her 15 minutes to settle in, to get comfortable, to let her guard down. 15 minutes for her to believe she was safe. Then Caleb pulled on the ski mask. Even in the dim light of the living room, he looked different. The mask erased his face, turned him into something faceless and threatening. He grabbed the plastic knife, tested its weight in his hand, and grinned beneath the fabric. Emma had her phone ready to record. Josh positioned himself near the hallway, barely containing his laughter. I stood behind Emma, my own phone out, heart racing with anticipation. Caleb moved toward the front door. He opened it slowly, then slammed it hard enough to rattle the frame. The sound echoed through the house like a gunshot. Then he started stomping through the hallway, heavy and deliberate, making it sound like someone was forcing their way inside. He yelled, his voice distorted and cold, "Stay quiet and you won't get hurt." We heard Mia's door slam shut. Caleb looked back at us, his grin visible even through the mask. He was loving this. We all were. He moved down the hallway, each step louder than the last, and we followed, our phones raised, our breaths shallow with excitement. He reached her door. Without hesitation, he kicked it open. The wood groaned and swung inward, revealing the dark interior of Mia's room. Caleb rushed inside, waving the plastic knife in the air, shouting something about staying down and not making a sound. And that's when everything stopped being funny. What happened next took maybe 3 seconds. But those 3 seconds stretched out in my mind like hours. Every detail burned into my memory with perfect, horrifying clarity. Mia shot up from her bed. Not slowly, not groggily. She moved like someone who had been waiting for this exact moment, like her body had been coiled tight and ready to spring. In her right hand, she held a butcher knife. A real one. The kind with a thick blade that caught the dim light from the hallway and reflected it back at us in a sharp, cold gleam. She didn't hesitate. She didn't freeze. She moved faster than I thought a human being could move. 1 second she was curled up on her bed, and the next she was swinging the knife with the kind of precision that only comes from pure, unfiltered survival instinct. The blade went straight into Caleb's side. He screamed. The sound was raw and primal, nothing like the playful yells he'd been making seconds earlier. He stumbled backward, crashing into the hallway wall, and the ski mask slipped off his head. Blood spread across his shirt in a dark, wet stain, soaking through the fabric and dripping onto the floor. He pressed his hand against the wound. His face twisted in shock and pain, and looked at Mia with wide, desperate eyes. That's when she saw his face. She knew it was Caleb. She saw him, recognized him, understood that this wasn't a real intruder. But nothing stopped. Her expression didn't change. Her eyes were wrong, empty, like she was looking through him instead of at him. There was no recognition, no relief, no moment of realization. Just that same hollow, terrifying blankness. She raised the knife again. Emma screamed, "Mia, stop. It's a prank. It's just a prank." But Mia didn't stop. She drove the knife into Caleb's back with the same mechanical precision, the same empty focus. He collapsed against the wall, sliding down onto the floor, leaving a dark smear of blood across the paint. He tried to crawl away, his movements weak and sluggish, his breathing ragged. Mia let out a scream. It wasn't human. It was raw and animalistic, a sound pulled from somewhere deep and broken inside her. She turned toward us, the knife still in her hand, still dripping. I grabbed Emma's arm and yanked her backward. Josh was already gone, bolting down the hallway toward the front of the house. I shoved Emma toward the bathroom at the end of the hall, the only room with a lock, and slammed the door behind us just as Mia reached it. She started pounding. Each hit rattled the door harder than the last, the wood groaning under the force. Emma pressed herself against the far wall, sobbing, her hands covering her mouth. I stood frozen, staring at the door, listening to the sound of Mia's fists hammering against it over and over. "Open the door," Mia screamed. "Open the door right now." Emma's voice cracked. "Mia, please. Please, it was just a prank. We didn't mean to hurt you." The pounding stopped. For one brief, fragile second, I thought she had calmed down. I thought maybe she had heard us, understood what we were saying, and was stepping back. Then the doorknob started shaking, violently, like she was trying to rip it off the door entirely. And I realized with cold, sinking certainty that the person on the other side of that door wasn't Mia anymore. Emma was still crying, her back pressed against the tile wall, her eyes fixed on the bathroom door like it might explode inward at any second. I scanned the room desperately, searching for a way out, for something we could use to defend ourselves, for anything that might give us a chance. The bathroom was small, cramped, with barely enough room for 2 people. But it had a window, a small window above the toilet that opened to the side yard. "She's going to break it down," I whispered, my voice shaking. The doorknob rattled harder. I could hear Mia panting on the other side, her breath coming in short, sharp gasps. The sound sent chills down my spine. She wasn't saying anything anymore. She was just breathing, waiting, preparing. I grabbed Emma and shoved her toward the window. "Go. Now." She didn't argue. She climbed onto the toilet, fumbling with the latch, her hands shaking so badly she could barely grip it. Behind us, the door groaned. I heard the wood starting to splinter. Mia was forcing it, throwing her weight against it, and it was only a matter of time before it gave. Emma got the window open and climbed through, her movements frantic and clumsy. I followed, shoving myself through the narrow opening, just as I heard the crack of wood splitting behind me. I fell out the window and hit the bushes hard, branches scraping my face and arms. Emma grabbed my hand and pulled me up, and we ran. We ran around the side of the house, through the front yard, out onto the street. Our breath fogged in the cold night air. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst through my chest. We didn't stop until we reached the neighbor's driveway, where we finally collapsed onto the pavement, gasping for air. Emma pulled out her phone with trembling hands and called 911. Her voice was barely coherent as she explained what had happened, where we were, that someone was hurt and bleeding, and we needed help immediately. The ambulance arrived within minutes, followed by 2 police cars. Paramedics rushed into the house while officers spread out, securing the scene. Emma and I stood outside, wrapped in shock blankets, watching as they brought Caleb out on a stretcher. He was pale, barely conscious, his shirt soaked through with blood. One of the paramedics told us later that if the knife had gone half an inch to the left, it would have hit a major artery. He wouldn't have made it. The police found Mia sitting on the floor of the hallway, right next to where Caleb had been lying. She was covered in his blood, her hands red and trembling. The knife was on the ground beside her. She was rocking back and forth, muttering something we couldn't hear, her eyes vacant and staring at nothing. They separated us and took statements. I sat in the back of a police car, answering questions I didn't know how to answer. Why did we think it was a good idea? What made us believe this would be funny? Did we know about her past? And that's when the truth came out. Mia had been attacked 6 months before she moved in with us. Some man had broken into her apartment in the middle of the night while she was sleeping. He held her at knife point for hours. The police report said she fought back, that she managed to escape, that she survived. But surviving doesn't mean healing. Her therapist confirmed she had severe post-traumatic stress disorder. She had panic attacks. She couldn't sleep without medication. She kept the knife by her bed because it was the only thing that made her feel safe. And we had recreated her worst nightmare as a prank. The detective kept asking me why. Why we thought this was okay. Why we didn't ask questions. Why we didn't stop to think about what we were doing. I didn't have an answer. I still don't. Caleb spent a week in the hospital. When he finally came home, he moved differently. Slower. Quieter. He didn't make eye contact with anyone. His parents wanted to press charges against Mia, wanted her arrested, wanted someone to be held accountable for what happened to their son. But the district attorney said it was self-defense. Mia genuinely believed someone was attacking her. Legally, she had every right to protect herself. Mia moved out that same night. She packed her 2 suitcases, loaded them into her car, and disappeared without saying a word to any of us. I haven't seen her since. The house felt different after that. Wrong. Like something had shifted in the walls themselves, some invisible line we had crossed that we could never uncross. We tried to clean the hallway, scrubbing the bloodstains over and over again, but no matter how many times we washed the floor, we could still see them. Dark shapes that seemed to seep back through the wood, reminders of what we had done. Emma moved out first. She said she couldn't sleep there anymore, that every time she closed her eyes, she saw Mia's face, heard her screaming, felt the weight of the bathroom door rattling against her back. Josh left a week later, claiming he had found a better place closer to campus. But I knew the truth. He couldn't handle the guilt. None of us could. Caleb dropped out of school entirely. Last I heard, he's back home with his parents, going to therapy for PTSD. The same condition Mia had. The same thing we ignored. The same trauma we turned into entertainment. I stayed in that house longer than I should have. Not because I wanted to, but because I felt like I deserved to feel uncomfortable. I deserved to walk past that hallway every day and remember what happened there. I deserved to lie awake at night hearing sounds that weren't there, imagining footsteps, imagining doors opening, imagining consequences. The house started to feel alive in a way I can't fully explain. It wasn't haunted, not in the traditional sense. But it remembered. The walls remembered. The floors remembered. And every time I walked through that hallway, I felt it watching me, judging me, reminding me that some things can't be undone. A few weeks after everything happened, I found myself sitting in the living room late at night, unable to sleep, scrolling through old messages on my phone. I don't know what I was looking for. Maybe proof that we weren't terrible people. Maybe some justification for what we did. Maybe just a distraction from the guilt that had settled into my chest like a stone. That's when I found Mia's social media profile. I had never looked before. None of us had. We never asked about her life, her past, her reasons for being so quiet and distant. We just assumed she was boring, awkward, not worth getting to know. Her profile was mostly private, but there were a few public posts for months before she moved in with us. Photos of a different apartment, a different life. Smiling pictures with friends. Normal college, student things. And then, abruptly, the post stopped. For 6 months, nothing. Radio silence. I kept digging, feeling like I was violating something sacred, but unable to stop. I found an article from a local news site dated 7 months ago. The headline made my stomach turn. Woman escapes home invasion, suspect still at large. I clicked on it. The article described an incident where a man had broken into a young woman's apartment in the middle of the night. He held her hostage for hours, threatening her with a knife, demanding money and valuables she didn't have. She managed to fight him off, escaping through a window and running to a neighbor's house. The suspect fled before police arrived and was never caught. The article didn't name her, but it didn't need to. I knew. I kept reading, clicking through related articles, police reports, victim advocacy pages. Mia had testified in court during a preliminary hearing, hoping they would find the man. They never did. She moved out of her apartment immediately after the attack, bouncing between friends' places before eventually finding our house. She thought she'd be safer with roommates. She thought having people around would help her feel protected. And we turned her safe space into her nightmare. I found posts on forums for PTSD survivors, discussions about triggers and trauma responses, and the fight or flight instinct that never fully goes away. One post, written anonymously but with details that matched Mia's story, described what it's like to live with that kind of fear. How every sound feels like a threat. How you sleep with a weapon nearby because your brain never stops preparing for the next attack. How you can logically know you're safe but still feel like you're about to die. Another post described what happens when someone triggers you. How your body takes over. How you stop thinking, stop reasoning, stop recognizing people you know. You become a machine programmed for one thing, survival. And in that moment, nothing else matters. Not friendships. Not logic. Not even your own safety. Just the overwhelming, primal need to eliminate the threat before it eliminates you. We didn't just scare Mia. We activated something inside her that she had been desperately trying to control. We dragged her back into the worst moment of her life and forced her to relive it, all because we thought it would be funny. I closed my phone and sat in the dark living room, surrounded by silence and shame. The house creaked around me, settling into the night. I thought about Mia sitting in that hallway covered in blood, rocking back and forth, her mind trapped in a loop it couldn't escape. I thought about Caleb lying in a hospital bed, wondering how a joke had almost killed him. I thought about Emma, Josh, all of us scattered now, carrying pieces of that night with us wherever we went. And I realized something that should have been obvious from the beginning. When you mess with someone's fear, you're not just playing a game. You're gambling with forces you don't understand. You're reaching into darkness you haven't experienced and pulling out horrors you can't control. We thought we were making a prank video. What we actually did was break something that might never be fixed. I finally moved out of that house 3 months after the incident. I couldn't take it anymore. The memories, the guilt, the way every shadow seemed to hold accusation. I found a small studio apartment on the other side of campus, a place with bright windows and new paint and no history. But moving didn't help. The house might have been behind me, but the weight of what happened wasn't. It followed me everywhere. I started having nightmares. Not about Mia attacking us, but about being her. I dreamed I was lying in bed when I heard someone breaking in. I felt the terror, the paralysis, the desperate scramble for the knife I kept under my pillow. I woke up gasping, my heart racing, my hand shaking, and for a few disorienting seconds I couldn't remember who I was, or where I was, or whether I was safe. I stopped watching prank videos entirely. The sight of them made me physically ill. All those comments saying LOL, and I'm dead, and this is hilarious. All those people who had no idea what could go wrong, who believed pranks were harmless entertainment, who thought fear was funny as long as it was happening to someone else. I wanted to comment on every single video. I wanted to tell them what happened to us. I wanted to warn them that fear isn't a joke, that trauma is real, that some people carry invisible scars you can't see until it's too late. But I never did. What would I even say? How do you explain something like this to people who don't want to understand? I ran into Josh once, months later, at a coffee shop near campus. We hadn't spoken since that night. He looked different, older somehow, like he'd aged years in a matter of months. We sat down together, not because we wanted to, but because ignoring each other felt worse. "Do you ever think about her?" he asked quietly. I didn't need to ask who he meant. Every day. I tried to find her, he admitted. Just to, I don't know, apologize, make sure she's okay. But her phone's disconnected. Her social media's gone. It's like she'd vanished. Maybe that's what she needed to do, I said. We sat in silence for a while, sipping coffee neither of us wanted. Finally, Josh spoke again. "I can't watch horror movies anymore. Every time someone gets scared, all I can think about is her face. The way she looked at Caleb. Like she wasn't seeing him. Like she was seeing something else entirely." "Yeah," I said. "I know." We never spoke again after that. Some connections are built on shared experiences. Ours was built on shared guilt. And neither of us wanted to carry that reminder. There's no escape from what we did. No moving to a new apartment, no blocking phone numbers, no deleting photos that will erase it. It's permanently written into who we are now. Every time I meet someone new, I wonder if they've heard about it. Every time I walk past a graveyard or see a Halloween mask or hear someone mention pranks, I'm back in that hallway, watching everything fall apart in slow motion. This isn't a story about ghosts or monsters or things that go bump in the night. It's a story about real horror. The kind that doesn't end when the sun comes up. The kind you can't outrun because it lives inside you, replaying over and over, reminding you of the moment you became someone you never wanted to be. I finally moved out of that house 3 months after the incident. I couldn't take it anymore. The memories, the guilt, the way every shadow seemed to hold accusation. I found a small studio apartment on the other side of campus, a place with bright windows and new paint and no history. But moving didn't help. The house might have been behind me, but the weight of what happened wasn't. It followed me everywhere. I started having nightmares. Not about Mia attacking us, but about being her. I dreamed I was lying in bed when I heard someone breaking in. I felt the terror, the paralysis, the desperate scramble for the knife I kept under my pillow. I woke up gasping, my heart racing, my hand shaking, and for a few disorienting seconds I couldn't remember who I was, or where I was, or whether I was safe. I stopped watching prank videos entirely. The sight of them made me physically ill. All those comments saying LOL, and I'm dead, and this is hilarious. All those people who had no idea what could go wrong, who believed pranks were harmless entertainment, who thought fear was funny as long as it was happening to someone else. I wanted to comment on every single video. I wanted to tell them what happened to us. I wanted to warn them that fear isn't a joke, that trauma is real, that some people carry invisible scars you can't see until it's too late. But I never did. What would I even say? How do you explain something like this to people who don't want to understand? I ran into Josh once, months later, at a coffee shop near campus. We hadn't spoken since that night. He looked different, older somehow, like he'd aged years in a matter of months. We sat down together, not because we wanted to, but because ignoring each other felt worse. "Do you ever think about her?" he asked quietly. I didn't need to ask who he meant. Every day. "I tried to find her," he admitted. "Just to, I don't know, apologize, make sure she's okay." But her phone's disconnected. Her social media's gone. It's like she'd vanished. "Maybe that's what she needed to do," I said. We sat in silence for a while, sipping coffee neither of us wanted. Finally, Josh spoke again. "I can't watch horror movies anymore. Every time someone gets scared, all I can think about is her face. The way she looked at Caleb. Like she wasn't seeing him. Like she was seeing something else entirely." "Yeah," I said. "I know." We never spoke again after that. Some connections are built on shared experiences. Ours was built on shared guilt. And neither of us wanted to carry that reminder. There's no escape from what we did. No moving to a new apartment, no blocking phone numbers, no deleting photos that will erase it. It's permanently written into who we are now. Every time I meet someone new, I wonder if they've heard about it. Every time I walk past a graveyard or see a Halloween mask or hear someone mention pranks, I'm back in that hallway, watching everything fall apart in slow motion. This isn't a story about ghosts or monsters or things that go bump in the night. It's a story about real horror. The kind that doesn't end when the sun comes up. The kind you can't outrun because it lives inside you, replaying over and over, reminding you of the moment you became someone you never wanted to be. I never told anyone about the emails. Not Caleb, not Emma, not Josh. What would I even say? That maybe Mia wasn't as traumatized as we thought? That maybe she wanted to hurt us? That maybe we deserved it? No. I kept it to myself. Buried it deep alongside everything else from that night. Because ultimately, it didn't matter whether Mia lost control or made a choice. The outcome was the same. Someone got hurt. Multiple people got hurt. And it all started because we thought fear was entertainment. Years have passed now. I graduated, moved to a different city, started a new job. I built a life that looks normal from the outside. I have friends who don't know about that night. I go to parties where people tell funny stories and laugh easily, unburdened by guilt. But I'm different. There's a part of me that never left that hallway, never stopped watching Mia drive that knife into Caleb's back, never stopped hearing Emma's screams or feeling the weight of that bathroom door rattling against my shoulder. I think about Mia sometimes. Wonder where she is, whether she's okay, whether she thinks about us the way we think about her. I wonder if she regrets what happened or if, somewhere deep down, she feels like justice was served. I wonder if she's moved on or if she's trapped in that night the same way we are. And I think about all the prank videos still being made, still being shared, still racking up millions of views. I think about all the comments saying this is hilarious and do it to someone else, and pranks are the best. I think about all the people who don't know what it feels like to cross a line you can't uncross. There's a lesson in what happened to us, though I'm not sure anyone wants to hear it. The lesson is this: fear is not a toy. Trauma is not a punchline. And when you gamble with someone's sense of safety for your own amusement, you're not just risking a bad reaction. You're playing with forces you don't understand, with histories you haven't lived, with pain you can't see. We thought we were making a funny video. We thought Mia would scream, maybe cry, then laugh it off when we explained it was just a joke. We thought we were in control. But control is an illusion. The second Caleb put on that mask, the second he kicked open that door, we lost control. We handed it over to something bigger than us, something we never should have touched. I still have nightmares. Sometimes I'm back in that house, watching it happen again. Sometimes I'm Mia, holding the knife, feeling the weight of it in my hand. Sometimes I'm Caleb, looking up at someone I thought I knew, and realizing too late that I don't know anything at all. And sometimes, in the worst nightmares, I open my door and find Mia standing there. Not angry, not violent, just sad. She looks at me with those empty eyes and asks a single question. Was it worth it? I never have an answer. Because no, it wasn't worth it. It will never be worth it. Not the views, not the laughs, not the momentary thrill of watching someone else suffer, for our entertainment. Some doors, once opened, can never be closed. Some lines, once crossed, redefine who you are. Some pranks aren't funny at all. They're just cruelty with a camera. And the joke, in the end, is always on us.